Quincy led by Chris Earler, 9 points. Brian Ross with 8. Manny Gomes leads Weymouth with 7, 6 apiece for Andy Reardon and Nathan Farrar, as Wildcats had a 6-point lead in the first half disappear, with Quincy led by as much as 7. Red Raiders just in front of our broadcast location, as they will have, to begin the second half, Chris Earler weighing 4, Jimmy Finn 44, Mike Johnston 44, Brian Ross back in the ball game running 45-54 is Matt Bromley. So you can look back at the key segment in the first half. Weymouth was controlling the first half, and Chris Earler in 3 successive trips buried 3-pointers, and the Red Raiders led the rest of the way in the first half. He had the lead, as I mentioned, as high as 7. Good cross-court feed on the skip pass. Johnson feeds Bromley underneath Ross. Red Raiders can't get it to go. Bromley gets beaten to the ball by Gomes. Gomes wearing 21, Manny Gomes. 14, John Stanford. 31, Steve Anzalone. 30, Derek Panora. 25, Andy Reardon. John Stanford to the hoop beautifully. John now with 6. 29-27. One Wildcat. Might see some action, but not knowing if it will be Richie Gomes, one of the other Wildcat captains. Richie is battling the flu. The Wildcats try to put the pressure on. Bromley. Earler had the opening, and, whoa, man, you talk about the break. Ross or Bromley, give it a Ross. That's how it's going tonight for the Red Raiders. There's 3 or 4 balls that have been tipped that have gone their way, and there is one example. That was just tipped out of Anzalone's hands and into the hoop. 31-27 with Quincy by 4, and the Wildcats with under 10 on the shot clock. Stanford says, well, you know, I had a tough first half. It's time for me to get it going here in the second. Number 2 scorer in the league, 21 points per game. And he's now got 8. The Wildcats back to within 2. Earler avoids Stanford. Wildcats were aggressive in the first half. Forced themselves into some tough situations as Finn can't get the shot to go. Anzalone has the rebound. It'll be Anzalone getting the possession for the Wildcats. Steven had the battle. Brian Ross. Ross did a good job. He just kept poking at it and bothering Steve Anzalone. And, well, the result was a near possession for the Red Raiders as Stanford has come out hitting his first 2 shots of the second half. Pulls the dribble back. It's 15 in the shot clock. I'm glad to see a shot clock in boys ball. Andy Reardon doesn't hit the shot. It's fun to see it. It's been some times over the years I've seen teams come in here and just try to air out the ball in the second half with the lead, and that's a bad pass, and Gomes has got terrific speed. Doesn't get it. Stanford on the follow does. Ties it up at 31. And I think we get Derek Panora gets some blood or shaken up. Derek heading to the locker room, apparently shaken up, and was brought out of the game. I couldn't try to watch Derek coming off the court. Reardon forces that turnover. Stanford heads up play. Reardon just couldn't control it. Andy just ran right into Jimmy Finn. Tough break right there, and the Wildcats is just an example. A bounce is not going their way. Anzalone strips Ross. Gomes spots Stanford. John 4 for 4 in the second half. 12 in the game. He's got all the Wildcat points. Timeout, North Quincy. 12:59 to go in regulation. And it is John Stanford who's come out smoking here in the second half, giving the Wildcats a 2-point lead. Now the Wildcats outscoring North Quincy 8-4 to begin the second half. 8-2, that is, with a 2-point lead, 33-31. Red Raiders coming back down by 2. They led by as much as 7 in the first half. Wildcats had a 6-point lead. Ross had a tough pass to field. traveling. I thought they were going to call a foul on Mike Rogerson. That would have been a tough call on Michael. But a break for the Wildcats, and then it was called traveling. Ross never really had possession of the ball. That was the funny thing in the call. Stanford surprised Anzalone with a pass. Steve, good hands, knocks it away. Gomes ends up with the ball and pulls it back. Now, Gomes is going to have it and have an opportunity to shoot, but he and Rogerson collided. Manning, nice move to the hoop. Gomes with 9 in the ball game, and the Wildcats by 4, 35-31. Wait, the Wildcats has just scratched, clawed, and, to their nickname tonight, because things at times haven't been easy. Had the opportunity while I was out convalescing to catch one game against Silver Lake. It was still one of the wildest high school games I have ever seen. Andy Reardon, good hustle, nearly came up with a steal. Earler and the Red Raiders, 5 on the shot clock, and Ross buries it. Brian Ross with all the North Quincy points in the second half, 4 of them. 35-33 win. Then you know what's frustrating about that? Andy Reardon makes a nice play. Wildcats hustle on defense, do some nice things, and end up getting nothing out of it. Rogerson blocked by Ross, and it'll still be Weymouth ball. But even there, I mean, good example. Ross nearly knocking in the Rogerson, getting North Quincy the ball back. But it's so frustrating. You make a nice play like that. It's Rogerson to the hoop. Can't get it to go. Reardon pump fakes and lays it in beautifully. Andy with 8, and he earned those 2. He just waited for Brian Ross to commit and put it in. And the Wildcats by 4, 37-33. 11:20 to go. And the reason is that some of the students coming back in, some of the teams and some of the people that are here were coming out of the concession stands, and underneath it was a little congested. That's the reason for the delay. You don't want somebody to be affected by coming baseline and having the ball knocked away. Andy Reardon's played a nice game. Anselm against Bromley. Bromley just had the advantage physically right there and got the little short 5-footer to go. That did a good job right there. He just carved out the opening with his shoulder. Stanford couldn't finish. John does a good job in getting in, but doesn't finish. Gomes near steal. Gomes forces the steal, however, when recovering. Stanford in a 2-on-1 with Anzalone. Ross gets back in the play. Stanford short, rebound Earler. Chris, no numbers, gets trapped, pulls it back out. Open, Mike Johnson, short on the shot. Rogerson to Stanford. John, good move to the hoop. Draws 2 as he gets attacked from behind by Jimmy Finn. 2 shots for John Stanford, a 75% foul shooter with 10:29 remaining. And his team up by 2. And these will be the Wildcats' 3rd and 4th trips to the foul line in this ball game. Nathan Farrar had the only 2 of the first half, and he came up empty. Nathan did, however, contribute a pair of 3-pointers in that first half. One of the strongest suits for the Wildcats a year ago was their foul shooting. They were an excellent foul shooting team. But John Stanford, the remaining starter, hits the second one. He's got 13. Of the 5 starters from last year, in fact, the top 7 players for the Wildcats, they only returned just the junior guard. And the junior guard has shown his experience so far. Anzalone, Gomes, Rogerson, well, all 3 were around. Might have been Anzalone. I don't know if that'd be 3 or 4 on Steven. That's a tough call on him. Bromley can't get it. Anselm the rebound. Anselm provides the rebounding. He threw a tough pass. There's nothing for John Stanford to do. And the way he had the avenue to dribble the basketball, he dribbled right into Chris Earler. There's nothing that could be done. And then the Wildcats 38-35 advantage. Gomes tried for the three, doesn't get it. Ross the rebound. Three-pointer, short for the Red Raiders. Bromley, second try over Reardon, draws Andy Reardon's second foul of the game. Second team. As Brian Doyle couldn't hit the three-pointer, but Bromley got the rebound. That front rimmed. And it'll be two for Matt Bromley. He has 54. Anzalone having to come out. A little bit of foul trouble. Difference in this game could come down to the foul line. With Quincy 6 of 7 so far. Weymouth 1 for 4. Bromley gets it. 38-37. There's the Wildcats with a 1-point lead, and Stanford brings it back. Rogerson, baseline move. Rogerson draws the foul. Ross or Bromley. They both were in the general neighborhood. It'll be Brian Ross and his first second team. Now comes the situation with Steve Anzalone, and if you're John Fleming, how long do you keep him on the bench before you bring him back in? 9:28 left. And Mike Rogerson and the Wildcats. They call it a free throw. The shot from the charity stripe, and sometimes it is the most difficult. It can be the most difficult. Rogerson 0 for 2. North Quincy going for the lead. Stanford won't let him. 2-on-1 with Gomes. Nice feed by Gomes. Early with a foul, and John Stanford will go to the line early second, and Chris doing the job right there. Don't let him get the layup. It was a good hard foul as he just got into the lane and committed it. And you might have heard some coaches get up and go intentional, and you know that's always a cry too. 13 foul on the Red Raiders. That's all they committed in the first half. John Stanford, who's 1 for 2 at the foul line. He's got 14, looking for 15. Junior guard is going to be a co-captain in soccer with Tim Alexis next year. Probably be a co-captain as well in basketball. He's got his team into a three-point advantage. The Wildcats using the pressure, trying to create some turnovers. Finn can't drive and score as he just was off on the shot. That was a tough pass for anybody to handle. Andy Reardon forced it. Good news is for Weymouth, they still get the basketball. Nearly gave it up as Chris Brigoli checks in. John Stanford and the Wildcats. Up by 3, the hands in the basketball with 8:45 to go. Gomes. Stanford out of, well, I was going to say out of control and a little off balance. But who am I to say, because he just pulled up and put the jump shot. He's had a big second half. The reason the Wildcats lead by 5, Andy Reardon with a reach in. And Andy. Andy Reardon on the foul. He just reached in. 17 for John Stanford in the game, 13 in the second half. The key. Way off with the shot was Doyle. Wildcats look to run. Stanford finds Gomes open. Manny doesn't get the shot in from behind. Andy Reardon and Matt Bromley. I'll tell you, Andy Reardon got a huge break. Andy Reardon was underneath Matt Bromley, and he was the one pushing, but Bromley gets called for the foul. 15 foul, and Ted Stevenson, off-camera view, had his hands to his head as if to say, come on. Alan, I will agree with the North Quincy coach. That was a tough call. Stanford had it partially tipped, but still caught the rim and just wouldn't fall over the rim for him. Wildcats have paid attention to Chris Earler since he hit those threes, and the Red Raiders, who were able to shoot those threes over the Wildcats zone, unable to do it now. Gomes tipping it and almost getting the Wildcats the ball. Bergoli, Stanford with the hands and the steal, and the Wildcats by 7. John with 19, timeout, 7:32 to go. John Stanford, 15 of his 19 points here in the second half. Biggest lead of the game for the Wildcats at the present time, 7. 44-37 with 7:32 left. One thing the Red Raiders have not been able to do here in the second half, scoring the 8 points, they haven't gotten the outside shooting that they'd got in the first half to get them going. Second of all, Brian Ross has been watched very nicely. And Ross got off to the good start in this game and had some good looks along the baseline. And a reach-in foul or off-ball foul. Mike Rogerson. Done a lot of dirty work out there and done a nice job. And the Wildcats with 7:18 left. 7-point lead, and that 4th team foul. North Quincy with 5. First half, Wildcats were in trouble with the fouls. Hey, Manny Gomes with a very nice play. Weymouth will get it on the possession arrow. And I think they were not what John Fleming originally wanted for the defense. It's one of those situations. I think the Wildcat coach was going like, no, 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 okay, we get the ball. They get the ball on the turnover and a chance to get the biggest lead of the game. North Quincy man-to-man, and Stanford. John Drawing, Jim Finn, who's listed as a forward. Coach Ted Stevenson putting somebody on, just trying to find the right person to slow him down. That time Stanford was off with a shot. Rogerson and Ross. It'll be Rogerson from behind. If my calculations are right, Michael Rogerson has 4 personal fouls, and the Wildcats are losing the people up front. Derek Panora went out banged up. Steve Anzalone in foul trouble. And now Mike Rogerson, if I get it right, has 4. The Wildcats have to play this out with a beat-up front line. Bromley in the lane, got the opening and buries it. Bromley, who had not scored in the first half, has 6. He had 10 in the first meeting between the two. 44-39. Wildcats in an opportunity to possibly hit double-figure lead. Don't. Russ commits the foul. Brian says, wait a minute, it was a good play. But it's in those type of situations, it was considered a grab by Brian Ross and the foul on Brian. The official look at it as a can grab. Gomes got caught underneath. Manny couldn't put it in. Oh, Andy Reardon, heck of a play. Andy Reardon hit the floor. That's just great hustle. Gets Weymouth the basketball. 6:01 left in the Wildcats. We'll reload the offense. But the fact is, they get the possession of the basketball, a chance to get the lead back to 7, which is the biggest margin. John Stanford got stripped. Bromley did a great job. John just had no avenue there. He tried to create one and just, Matt Bromley took it away. 44-39. Finn goes against Reardon. Andy says I didn't grab him, and Andy just unfortunately did. Andy just reached in. When you come down on the ball, an official most times is going to just call it on you. And Andy Reardon will go out as he's got 4 fouls, and that's by my scorekeeping. Jim Finn for 2. With 5:34 left, both teams will be in the bonus the rest of the way. Finn with 7, and the Red Raiders surviving this one at the foul line. Nine out of 10 at the foul line of the Red Raiders. The Wildcats are 3 for 8. 44-41. Stanford in trouble, looks for help. Back out to Nathan Farrar. The Wildcats 3-guard offense. Derek Panora back in. He and Rogerson in the front 2. Stanford for 3. Big shot. Now John at his average. 47-41, 5 to go, and that's a big shot. The Wildcat offense was breaking down. Ross blocked by Panora. Panora commits the foul on the rebound. Well, Brian Ross will get 2. Stanford had 4 points at halftime. He's now got 22. It's the reason the Wildcats are in good shape. Bromley, the rebound, gets it in a go, and he is fouled by Panora. Derek, 2 quick fouls. And Matt Bromley will go to the line to try to complete the 3-point play. And that hurts. With 4:55 left, the Wildcats up by 4, 47-43. And the Red Raiders 10 for 12 at the foul line. Wildcats gonna have to just try to hang on and execute on offense with the 3 guards in there. Farrar, Gomes, and Stanford. Stanford, everybody just looking to him with 8 on the shot clock. John at the foul line, off with it. Panora, Ross and company. Weymouth ball. Bromley and Farrar went after the basketball, and it was knocked away from Nathan by Bromley. Anselone back in. John Fleming says, I gotta go to him. It's in foul trouble. He needs the board work. And also the ability to pick. As Anselone's wide body gives the Weymouth guard some room to move as Gomes has it knocked away. Ross to steal. Rob put it in a tough spot for Gomes. That's a bad shot by Johnson, and Ross bails him out. And brings the Red Raiders to within 1, 47-46. Brian Ross just hustling into the play. Ross with 14. Farrar doesn't get it. Rogerson has it knocked away by Ross. Ross says Rogerson lost it himself. Andy Reardon into the game. Wildcats trying to survive some foul difficulties. And try to make something happen for themselves. Get the victory. Up by 1. They get the offense to where they were executing for about a 7-minute stretch here in the second half. Doing some very nice things. Reardon, tough shot. It just had no spin on it. It had the reverse type of spin because it went away from going into the hoop. North Quincy is battled back and has a chance. Anselone with the body commits the foul. And for Stephen, 1 is 4th. Matt Bromley, quiet in the first half, as to 1-1. Bromley with 9, now 10 to tie it. 3:33 left. 47. Similar to the first game. Red Raiders finished up in winning that first game, getting the last points, the last 8 to win it. Wildcats don't want to see that happen again. Stanford, foul line, jumper, doesn't go. Angelo tried to tip it from Bromley and couldn't. It's a good look for John. John just didn't knock it in. Finn just a wild shot. Rebound Andy Reardon. Reardon creates a break. Gomes pulls up and hits. Manning with 11. Wildcats by 2, 2:50 to go. Wildcats trapping it midcourt. Bromley and Finn and Erler reverse the ball so they can have the opportunity to set up for the shot. Erler takes steps. And Ted Stevenson says, that's ridiculous. It looked like a good first step by Chris Erler, but it was not. Well, the Wildcats can build the lead back. They've had to try to survive some foul problems. Stanford brings it back, and the Wildcats by 2. Reardon cut off nicely by Johnson. Ansel, a good feed underneath. Rogerson will get 2 with 2:27 left, and Brian Ross commits the foul. And his third, and let's see if it is 2 for the Wildcat senior, Mike Rogerson. It's a Wildcat team for the most part, a lot of juniors. Mike Rogerson. Can breathe a little easier. You get that first one like that, makes that second one, ooh, so much easier. Most of the time. Most of the time. That's what I hear the guys who do like an ESPN say. You get that first one, makes the second one so much easier. 50-47 though, Wildcats by 3. I think I put the hex on him. Bromley gets free and buries it. Bromley with 12 in the ball game. Red Raiders and the Wildcats in a pretty good one here. 50-49 Weymouth, 2 to go. Stanford looks around and, well, surveys the scene and setting it up. Reardon, baseline, blocked by Johnson. Mike Johnson commits the foul, and I'll tell you, Mike Johnson, and I know you got to be here, and this is Weymouth Cable, but I'll tell you, Mike Johnson, it's got all ball. That was an all-ball foul. Andy Reardon steps off, so the Wildcats do not get the lane violation and lose an opportunity with 1:52 left, 50-49. Foul shooting frustrations. Reardon hits 1 out of 2. Wildcats getting 1 out of 2. North Quincy's done a good job at the line, but Weymouth with the lead, 51-49. Weymouth trying to make North Quincy work it with some pressure coming up court. They want to make them take some time off the clock and force them into a tougher situation. For the lead, does not go for Mike Johnson. Ross the rebound. Erla tipped away, Stanford. Stanford, did he tip it up? Jump ball. North Quincy will get it. And that's a situation where an official couldn't tell where he could get, couldn't get a good look. That's a tough look. That's a tough look to see it. Because he's running and he's looking behind, and so it's the smartest thing he thought to do. Let's get the jump ball with 1:22 left. Weymouth by 2. Johnston, cross court. Finn drives. Doesn't get it. Anselone the rebound. Anselone tied up. Weymouth will get it on the possession arrow. Stephen couldn't keep his footing. Steve got the rebound. The good news, the bad news, just couldn't keep his footing. So the arrow goes North Quincy's way, and both teams in the bonus. However, North Quincy will be shooting 2 shots in the next Weymouth foul. Red Raiders still have the opportunity to foul Weymouth and force a 1-and-1. Under a minute to go, 56 seconds and counting. Stanford and the Wildcats, 10 seconds left on the clock. John buries a key jump shot. 24 for Stanford, and that could be a big hoop in this one. That could be the biggest play of the game right there. Just pulling in and hitting the jumper. Finn, Ross, foul line. No, Ross again. Foul. And John Fleming looked up and said, oh, no. Andy Reardon, Steve Anselon, and Mike Rogerson all around. But Brian Ross will shoot 2. Ross 4 out of 5 at the foul line. Mike Rogerson fouls out. Derek Panora will come in for him. Rogerson with a point. Tell you, foul shooting key. Timeout, Weymouth. 33.8, and no, they will not get the timeout because Ross had it in his hands. Now timeout. 53-50 in favor of the Wildcats with 33.8 left. And I'll tell you, foul shooting could be a key in the stretch drive. Wildcats by 3. North Quincy 11 for 13 at the line. The Wildcats are 5 for 12. Brian Ross has missed just 1 foul shot in this game. He is 5 for 6. Ross with 15, looking for 16 to bring his team within 2 with 33.8 left. And, you know, the key is now getting that rebound if he misses. Reardon, Anzalone, Panora, Gomes, and Stanford for the Wildcats out there. If Ross doesn't, he's got 16 two-point game. Pressure. John Stanford gets the basketball. Reardon gets grabbed. Mike Johnson. 1-and-1 for Andy Reardon. It was 1 out of 2 at the foul line. This game, Andy with 9. And looking for a career high. 29.6. Front rims at Anzalone. Big rebound. Push on Brian Ross, and Anzalone goes to the line.